The first thing we're going to do is brown the sausage. So over medium heat, let's put in the sausage. You can use fairly large chunks here because we'll be cutting it down to much smaller pieces later on. Right now we just want to get the sausage browned on both sides. I use a pound for this recipe. Sausage usually comes in packages either 16 or 18 or 20 ounces. I found that 16 ounces is pretty much all I need to do a nice bolognese for 3 to 4 people. Once you get everything in the pan, it's a little crowded, but it's not like veal where it's going to hurt anything. Once you get it all in the pan, I usually like putting the heat up to a medium high. I never put it on full blast. But medium high works pretty well. So I'm going to cook that for about 1.5 minutes, 2 minutes on one side, or medium high. And that'll get one side brown. And then I'll take a spatula and try as best I can to flip it over to the other side to brown that side. You can see some of the oils coming out there. Sausage, I use regular pork sausage. If you want less oil, but we'll be taking care of the oil in a little bit. You can use a turkey sausage. That'll be less in calories and fat. But I've been making it this way. And the pork sausage, I think, adds the most flavor. So once you've got everything in one layer on the other side, brown it for about another 1.5 minutes. And then what we're going to do is get rid of that excess grease generated by the pork sausage. So on a plate with some paper towels, just bring it out there. If you want, you can also wipe the inside of the pan. That will save you a little bit more fat, but this gets rid of, I'd say, 95%. And the fat is what gives it a lot of flavor. But you want to get rid of most of it and retain just some. And let's soak it up a little bit. And that should be enough. Now let's put it back in the pan and start working on it, because you don't want to eat big chunks of sausage like that. So what I do is I take a pastry knife or a blender, whatever you want to call it, that has about 4 or 5 blades, and I start working the sausage, cutting it. And what this does is makes it into a nice fine grain. That's pretty much all I use a pastry blender for nowadays, is to cut up beef or hamburger into a lot finer pieces to use in tacos. And after about 1.5 minutes of working it with the pastry blender, you come up with a nice uniform granular pebble-like consistency, and that's what's the bolognese. I suppose you can do it in a blender as well, Cuisinart, but I think that might be a little bit more effort than it's worth, since this only takes about 90 seconds to do. And once you've got that, put on the medium-low heat and put in the diced tomatoes, tomato sauce. Both of these are no salt or low sodium. You don't need that extra salt in this dish. And now we got about a cup of red wine. And the last thing is some double concentrated tomato paste in the tubes. I get this for about, I think it's $2 at Whole Foods. There's some that's a lot more expensive. I'd go for the cheapest I get. It's still imported from Italy. And mix it all together. And all we're going to do now is cook it down. And once everything's blended together, let's get that to a nice rolling simmer. You don't want the heat too high, because then it'll start spattering. But the whole cooking down process from start to finish is going to take anywhere between 35 and 45 minutes. You're going to be stirring occasionally and adjusting the heat, because You start seeing some spattering. This is just under the spatter boiling stage. And after about half an hour, this is what you're going to see in the pan. Starting to thicken up. And you'll be stirring occasionally. Make sure everything's blended and cooking evenly. So after 30 to 40 minutes, it's looking like this. And now I've got the pasta water boiling and the pasta in the pan. And let's drain that pasta. Don't rinse it. Put it back on the stove. Take a scoop or two of the pasta sauce, and this is what's going to keep it from sticking. Mix that in. I probably could have used another scoop in there, but this will work. And once that's nice and blended, you're not going to have that clumping, and you won't have to rinse away any of the nice pasta coating. And let's scoop it up. Get a nice dish of pasta. Here I've got thin spaghetti. And I'm just going to pour scoop a little sauce on top. And garnish it with a little chopped fresh basil and Parmesan cheese. And you're finished.